Hey, it's Sarah with Fairheart, and I'm going to be painting a pair of earrings today, and there's a couple different options for these pansies. This is the dangle option that is like the main featured for the month of May, and we're going to be putting in a bonus pair of earrings that is going to be a stud. So this is the studs are the backings that you glue on, and they're just like a nice smaller version of the main pansy. So I thought that would be a perfect little fun extra thing to add into there. So I'm going to be showing you how you can make this into kind of a more realistic looking pansy flower. And pansies come in all kinds of different colors, yellows and purple and blue. And what I'm going to be doing is different shades of blue, or like periwinkle. So I'm going to be showing you how to mix a pretty periwinkle color, but feel free to mix it up and use whatever color you want. My goal was to kind of complement the flower that was part of the interchangeable home sign, which is the featured project of the month for May. So, and that's going to be a pretty periwinkle blue flower. So let's go ahead and get started. What you're going to need is some detail brushes. I have a longer bristle brush, and these are new because I am running out of good detail brushes that aren't all broken into, and so I just got those wet, and that way they're ready to work with. And a quick tip when you're painting these is if you roll the paint or roll the brush head in the paint when you're putting some new paint on your brush, that helps to get the tip into a nicer, finer point. Another option for these, anytime you're painting or coloring the wooden projects, you can actually use markers and colored pencils with these. So if you want to try, or you can also do kind of a mixture, so if you want to paint part of the background and then add some details with a marker, you can do that. So feel free to mix it up and just experiment with whatever way you find easiest for yourself. So with a pansy flower, and what I'm going to do is actually look up a picture so I can kind of show you the shading, and just if we're trying to be more realistic. So I'm going to look up a blue pansy. Okay. So this is actually what I'm kind of going for as far as the colors. Something really close to this. So you can use either some pre-mixed blues, and it's not going to be quite as detailed because there's a lot of like intricate shadowing and stuff. Basically, we just want to have some lighter blues and darker blues, and then have the yellow in the center and just some of those contrasting colors. So we're going to do our best to kind of make it look like that. So I'm going to start. Actually, I'll hold this here while I mix my colors so you can kind of see what I'm doing to get these shades of blue. So this is the blue and the white that we always include in our kits. That's a really pretty standard dark blue. It's kind of close to a phthalo blue. So if I pull some of that aside, mix in a little bit of the white, it's not going to be quite as vibrant as the real thing, but this blue is pretty close to the inner part, or the inside, or at least as far as the shading goes, it's about the same value, I guess, as the darker blue. And then adding just a touch, I've got some red over in the other corner. If you add just a touch of red, it kind of gives it more of a purpley tone. So I kind of want more of a periwinkle. So if I add a little bit more white to that color that I just mixed, that's going to give me more of the periwinkle. And you can always use a pre-mixed blue, like I said, if you want to match something exactly, and get a really bright, vibrant blue. That's going to be your best bet. If you have like a little bottle of craft, like you can get the craft paints in 2-ounce little bottles, and a little bit goes a really long way for these earrings. So that's what I would recommend if you are purchasing your own paints. And I'm going to mix like just a brighter light blue without the red in it. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside. And I'm just going to start right on my top. Oops, getting too close. Like I said, if you twist the brush in the paint, or even if you kind of do it on the edge of your palette, that helps to bring the tip into a nice fine point. And I hold the brush right like I would a pencil. And just kind of float it across that surface. And then another thing you can do, because if I get in really close, you can see some of the wood grain is a little bit tricky to fill in. So if you just take like a little squirt bottle of water and mist your paints a little bit, kind of get that watered down just slightly. Sometimes that helps fill in those cracks. Like it just kind of floods it into the cracks. And then I just rotate this as I go, and see I'm kind of putting my finger, resting it on the earring. I'm just bringing it out to the edges of that line. And you can paint your edges or leave it as it is. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just put a little bit of glitter around it, like on the outside edge, and that looks really cute. Alright, so I am going to be painting in the reference photo that I pulled up, on the outer edges of each of these, or most of these petals, there's that lighter blue. So I'm going to paint the outer edges and then kind of transition into the darker blue from there. And just remember, you can always paint over this if something doesn't quite go the way that you wanted. Just feel free to paint over it. You gotta let it dry a little bit and then it would be good to go. And I always have my pinky resting on something, because otherwise you're just kind of like floating in the air, and that is much more difficult to paint that way. So I'm always finding some sort of an anchor point for my finger, for my pinky finger to rest on, and that kind of helps support the rest of my hand. Okay, so now I'm going to get into this deeper blue that I mixed. And I'm kind of getting it, it's a little bit more watery right here, which is what I want. You don't want it too watery because it can kind of get out of control. And I'm just going to pull into those little cracks, trying not to like fill them in, but just making my way around the rest of this. You can kind of just go like that. Sometimes you can even use your finger, just blending that. That worked pretty well. Just kind of experiment with it. So I'm getting the edge, or like the inside part of it, before I blend it. And I'm kind of meeting it into the middle. And the blending can only occur if both colors are wet. So if your light blue paint has already dried, then you'll need to grab a little bit more light paint on your brush, which you might want to do anyway, just to kind of help with that process. And then you can just kind of go right over that transition part. You can also use another brush. So if you have like another clean brush like this, and you can use that to help blend it and just kind of swirl it around a little bit, something like that. You can use it, get a little bit more paint on there, kind of switch back and forth. I can see a couple of spots like in this area right here. It just seems a little bit like I can see that wood color, so I'm gonna add a little more paint there. And this is turning out quite well. Color-wise, this is really what I was going for. And it's really fun to blend. It's like a mini painting. It's really fun to do this on a small scale. And I'm just going to add a little bit of a shadow on this upper section too, because I'm trying to make it look a little realistic. So I'm just going in and kind of blending, softening that transition from the light to the dark. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. You can't study it really close. You got to be able to let it go. And just going to add a little more paint on this top part. And you might notice the wood grain a little bit kind of pop up in some spots after the paint starts to dry. So if that happens, just go over it again. You can also do a very light sanding with a sandpaper block. But I think it gives kind of a cool look, a cool effect. So while I have those colors on my brush, I'm going to do the same thing. And usually the second time around, once you kind of know what you're doing, goes a little bit faster. So I'm just going to repeat those steps on this other side and also on the studs. And I did simplify the design a little bit on the studs just because it's a much smaller surface, so I didn't put the inside details there. So if you wanted to do a different color, it's the same process, but with, you know, if you were going to do a yellow pansy, you know, do different shades of yellow and some orange. Use the orange for the darker color. You just need to have a contrasting color of some sort. Keep bumping the camera with my hat. It's like right in front of me. And then if this happens, see I got a little bit over the edge, I just take my fingernail and kind of scrape it off, but you have to do it while it's wet, so I get that done right away. Okay, so that's all the top ones with the bright color. So I'm going to go through and do, I'm not going to be able to do all of those when I get to the blending, so I'm going to go around, I'm going to finish this flower and then I'll do the studs together. And just go around the outside edges with the light blue. And same thing, like if you get a little bit, you can also use a toothpick because sometimes it's a little bit hard to get into little crevices if you get outside the line. So just use whatever tools you have. I think a toothpick is a great tool to have around when you're making art. Okay, so I'm going to use my smaller, or my other brush that had the darker paint in it. A little bit more, a little more water. A little more water, a little more paint. Okay. And I'm rolling my brush. I'm kind of just in the habit of doing that, just rolling it. And then I'm just going to start on the inside, kind of zigzag it into those little lines. And then I'm going to kind of pull it out, push it out to closer to the edges. And then I'm going to grab my other brush, grab a little bit of the lighter paint, and kind of do this mixture. And I'm going to go right over that line and just kind of do these little swirling motions. Get that blended. And I'm going to look at my other earring just to see, so it looks like there's a little more, it's a little softer and has a little more of the darker blue. So I'm going to take that brush, kind of rotate it, spin it out, spin it. And I gotta grab or put a little bit of that darker blue in here for shadowing. I'm going to soften that with the other brush. So that's a little bit closer, just needs probably one more time, just kind of going through and softening that transition. Going back and forth. And they don't have to be exactly like each other, just kind of close, you know? Oops. I think that looks pretty good. And it'll look a little different once it dries. So I'm going to do the same thing for these little guys. And sometimes it's easier just to hold it, kind of rotate it. And the paint dries pretty quickly, so you should be able to touch it. And with the smaller surfaces, it's not quite as difficult because you're not going to see all the tiny, tiny, tiny little details. So you can kind of just fudge it a little more. So I'm just kind of quickly going through. And because it's so small, you're not going to see every little imperfection. Okay, so then I'm just going to switch and blend. Another thing you can do is kind of tape these on the table so that they don't try to, move around and shift while you're working on them. I totally forgot to do that with this one, but I haven't needed it a whole lot, I guess. And then I just want to add a little bit more of that bright light blue. And you just kind of keep playing with it until you're happy with the results. But I think that looks pretty good. All right. So now I'm going to add a little bit of the dark blue inside the centers of the flower. So there's like this dark blue in the center before we get to the yellow. So that would be the next part. So I'm going to clean off the other brush. And I'm just going to be dipping right into my dark blue. So let's see how this looks. And I'm not actually filling in all of the little tiny, tiny lines. You could also change this up and do yellow instead, or white. There's lots of varieties of pansies and other flowers, so you can and you can also, just like make it up if you don't see a variety of what you were thinking about doing. You can just kind of make one up. So just try your best to kind of get those in there. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to, I didn't get into every single little tiny line, but that's where those lines just kind of, they look dark, and so I'm just trying to get into these little guys, or the bigger ones that are kind of sticking out more. And I find that it's easier if you start from the outside and pull in, so like from here, and pull out, or from the outside pull in. And again, this is where you have a toothpick or something tiny and kind of pointy that can assist in getting those really fine details. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing here. And what I'll do is I'll just put a dot of the yellow on the inside, since it's not actually scored onto there. You could leave it just like that, it's kind of cute, just with the plain wood too. Ah, shoot. Oh, that landed pretty good. Okay. So we are getting there. So I am gonna be, see, I think I'll do a dot of white because there's two dots. There are two little sections in the center, so I might just do a tiny bit of white here, and then the yellow in the center. And same here, you can kind of just, you know, add that white center and put the yellow over top. You can also do a little bit of a white highlight if you want to kind of add just a really, that was probably a little bit too much, but just kind of a soft white highlight. Adding in those little highlights is helpful. And then taking just a little bit of yellow, and I only need a little dot, so I'm going to try to just take it from the bottle and get it open. Just taking a little dot of yellow, putting that right in the center. Ah, oops, there we go. It's not even super noticeable. Right. So like I said, if you want to add anything to the outer edge, you can do that at any time. Another thing you can do is add a clear coat, like a varnish, or even Mod Podge. If you have Mod Podge, that works pretty well as a sealer. I'm gonna put, oh gosh, it is really hard, let me tell you. It's hard having the camera this low. I keep bumping it. Let's see, I'm gonna grab my varnish and show you how I would put that on, although you want to make sure that this is totally dry, so I'm gonna blast it really quick with my hair dryer. sometimes the benefit of adding the varnish is it kind of helps make the paint colors pop, and it seals the wood. So I'm going to grab that really quick. So this is some of the varnish that I like to use. It's a polyurethane gloss, and just a tiny bit goes a long way. It's a little dab. And then I would use like a small flat brush for that, or something like that. You just get a little bit on your brush. And you can kind of start in the, I would probably start towards the center and pull out, so that way you don't have drippage over the sides. So like I said, Mod Podge works similarly, and it kind of goes on. So this goes on clear, dries clear and shiny, but the Mod Podge goes on a little bit kind of milky colored, and it looks like when you first put it on, it looks kind of white, but then it does dry clear. And it's not something that you absolutely have to have. It's just an optional thing that can help keep your paints looking nice, and it helps to seal the wood. So yeah, that's just something extra that you can do if you choose. All right, so we've got a couple pairs of earrings here, and let's see, that takes, it's almost dry. I'm gonna get my hardware prepped while that is drying. So if you've never put hardware onto earrings before, you're gonna need at least one pair, but I would recommend 2 pairs of needle nose pliers. And we include this in all of the kits, so you should have this with your, or we include this with all the blanks and the kits, so you should have the proper hardware that you need. So the way that we put this on, and I'm going to use silver for this one. You can also, like, if you want different colors or just a variety, it's not terribly expensive to just buy earring hardware you can get them on Amazon or at most craft stores. So if you want to mix it up, and some months I do gold, sometimes I do silver, or a mixture, but you can order some online, and then you can have your freedom to choose what color you want. So I put the little guy on first, the little ring, and I usually clip it shut. You kind of hear like a little clip sound. That is what I put, and I make sure that the ring has a really good, I don't really like how this is lined up exactly. I try to get it so that both ends are like lined up right together. And this one's a little bit off, but it would probably be fine. I'm just kind of OCD about it, I guess. I like it to be nice and straight, or nice and round. I think that's just going to be how it's going to be. And I've broken many fingernails trying to use my fingernails to open these rings, so that's why I use two. So I hook that on, and then you can just take the pliers and kind of squeeze it shut till it clips, or you can use both and clip it together. And then there's a larger ring, and it depends on the size, like, of the hole of the earrings, but the larger ring will go onto your earrings first. So I hook it like this through the back, and then I just kind of hold it like that, set my pliers down, and then you're going to hook the small ring onto this larger ring. And then I take with my right hand and one pair of pliers, I hold that one side, and then with the other pliers, I bring them both together so that it meets nice and clean like that. And then that is finished. That one is ready to go. And then we also include the little backing pieces, so if you prefer to use those, I know some people don't, but you have that option if you like to prevent your earrings from coming off. So I always just slip those on. Alright, here's the next set. And sometimes I'll just kind of open it with my hand. So hook it from the back. This is just how I do it. There's many ways that you can do this, but and then you're going to take your hook or your smaller hoop and hook it on. You want to make sure, I don't think I said this yet, that your hook is facing away from your flower or from your earring, because that's what's going to make it display correctly off your ear. And then put them together. And there you have it. There's a finished, beautiful pair of earrings. So I'm going to attach the stud hardware to these, and for that you just need some super glue. There's all kinds of different glue out there. You want the strong, like, instant bonding stuff. And then with the studs, what you get is the base, that this is the part that sticks to the back of the earring. So you're going to put a small drop of glue and stick that on. And I would recommend, and then this is the backing, I would recommend that you wait a few minutes until the glue is totally dry. And I like to just stick those on before I glue it on. You do have to have kind of a little bit of a steady hand. So let's see, so here is my super glue. It's just some basic generic super glue. There's all kinds of stuff, like I said, even some UV glue where you hit it with some UV light and that helps strengthen it. That is like the best of the best stuff that you can get. But the way that I think is, if months down the road, if you've been wearing these all the time and this happens to fall off, you can just re-glue it back on. But yeah, so just know that anytime one of these comes apart, or maybe this clasp ends up coming apart, you can just put it back together. I don't usually have issues with our earrings, but it's always possible. So you're going to want to find the top part of your earring and flip these over. So I know that I've got that on the top. And then try to get just a tiny drop of glue. The less that you have is actually better, and I put it towards the top because I want it to kind of hang off of my ear a little bit, but you can also put it like a little bit towards the middle if you prefer. And then you want to kind of press and hold it down. So you almost need to like stab yourself a little bit and kind of press and hold those down for 10 to 20 seconds. You can use something else like a little, actually I've got this little business card holder I can probably use to just carefully stack that and press it down so I'm not stabbing myself. Or like a little, what are they called? The thumbtack, or not thumbtacks. It's for sewing and it goes over your finger so you don't stab yourself with the needle. Forget what they're called. But just give it some pressure. That's usually the best. This doesn't have instructions on the bottle, but I know it says to hold for like 10 seconds. So, okay. And you'll notice like some of the glue that seeped out a little bit is still going to be a bit wet, but it's already on there. It's holding very well already. So I usually just let that glue kind of cure a little bit. You could even kind of hit it with your blow dryer a little bit, but definitely do not put that on right away because you don't want that to get glued to your ear by any means. So I'm just gonna let it do its thing. But yeah, there is our studs. It looks like I got a couple things on there. All right, so there's our little stud earrings and the dangles. So that's that. That's a pair of hand-painted earrings. All of the earring designs are different each month. Some are very basic, like very, very easy to paint. Some are a little more like artistic, I would say, kind of like this, where you gotta put in a little more effort in shading and just like, you know, bringing out some of the detail. But my goal is to provide the step-by-step instructions and even a video most months. So I hope that you are enjoying being a subscriber to our Maker's Box, and I would love to see how your earrings turn out. If you can upload a picture in the Facebook group or send me an email at makers@fairheart.com. I'd love to see how your earrings turned out. So hope you had fun with this tutorial, and until next time, never stop creating. Bye for now.